Welcome to Transformation with Martinet. Martinet Emmons is a transformational life coach who broke free from childhood abuse, sexual trauma, and overcame cancer to become a powerful force of healing and hope for others. Martinet describes traumatic events as fierce emotional tsunamis. They can leave impending doom and destructive tidal waves of emotions that hit you when you least expect it. Martinet helps her clients dive into the depths of their trauma and pain as she stands fiercely advocating for them to shine a light on those experiences and find the lesson in the pain. She serves as a beacon of hope that guides you to see the strength, lessons, and purpose that can be born from the pain. You can feel alive with purpose again when you awaken your dormant strength, step into your power with a sense of peace, and discover a new wave of hope with the right tools and support. Martinet and her guests are here shining their lights today through empowering stories of hardship and transformation to inspire you to find hope and to see that there is a beautiful blue ocean of serenity, happiness, and fulfillment in your future. Transformation with Martinet starts now.
Welcome, everyone. My intro always gets me a little emotional because a lot of it is to do with my story, so it still gets to me. Welcome, everyone, to Transformation with Martinet. This is where we overcome everything and compromise nothing. I'm very happy to be back today. Fridays are my favorite day just to be here sharing stories of hope with you all. And I am getting a little emotional as usual. For those of you who don't know, my show is every Friday at 1 p.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Pacific, and my show is about hope. The guests that I invite on here and we all agree that us as humans, we can get back up from anything. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce my guest to you today, Miriam Matthews. She's a wonderful inspirational coach. And Miriam, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself a little bit better?
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much, Martinet. So my name is Miriam. I am a Christian transformation coach. I'm a daughter. I'm a wife. My kids know me as mom. I'm a licensed therapist. I've been in the field of social work for about 8 years. And I just want to thank you for allowing me the opportunity to come onto your platform, which is so powerful. It allows me the opportunity to be very intentional about taking a pause and honoring my story and honoring my voice. Yes. So I just thank you so much for your platform. And if I do cry, that's okay. I gave myself permission to cry because it's all about just being in the present moment. So when I was thinking about what to share, I literally went back to where I was born and who was my nuclear family. Who's my nuclear family? You know, I was born to Lucy and Leroy of Atlanta, Georgia, at Northside Hospital, which was regarded as like the baby birthing capital of hospitals.
Oh my gosh, okay.
Yeah. And, you know, I was just imagining that I must have been like, you know, just exuberant and innocent and just the cutest baby ever.
For sure.
My grandmother was there. She came from Ghana. She's from West Africa, and she had come to the States to help my mother raise us. I have 2 older brothers. One is 2 years older than me, and then I have an older one who was still in Ghana at the time. So I am the youngest of 3 siblings. My childhood nickname is Mimi.
It fits you. It's cute.
Thank you. Mimi, right?
You're like, so cute. You are. Yeah, still.
Thank you. We attended church. Church was a huge foundation of our lives. I believe in Jesus. I have more of a relationship with God now than I did before. But when I was thinking about childhood, it was that name, that childhood nickname that stuck out to me. So aside from it being cute and fitting, I'm like, why does that stick out to me so much? And it reminded me of a time where I was so adventurous and I was so creative And it reminded me of just joy and actually being myself without trepidation. And like I would think something and I would just be Martinet. Like I would just allow, like I remember wanting to go on these bicycle tours throughout my neighborhood with friends or like really silly things.
I love it. Oh, I love
it. Or I would even like collect rocks or I don't know, just build things. Like I was a creator, you know, very creative. And then I also realized, how did I get to the place where I stopped doing that? Where I started to overthink all of my actions and felt that my state of being was wrong. So, and you know, the social worker in me, and just you know, the individual, the inquisitive part of me, you know, who wants answers, just went back to the etiology or just the history behind what happened, right? So my parents divorced around the ages of 4 or 5, so young. I do recall seeing an instance of domestic violence in my household. I didn't see a whole lot of that, but I do remember, you know, this instance. And I know that in the work that I've done, you may not remember everything up here, but sometimes like physiologically, you keep track, your body keeps score.
It's in your body.
It's in your body, right? Because that's sort of how we work. We're meant to like stay safe, right? So I remember this instance of my mom holding up this chair and like defending herself from an attack. And I'm like behind this door. I remember that. So, you know, fast forward a little bit, they ended up separating and divorcing. And I do recall feelings of disappointment, you know, because my family had separated. What I knew and what was familiar was disrupted. So I even remember, it's interesting because it's like, well, kids are smart. I mean, they're intuitive. They pick up on that energy, right?
Oh, they feel everything.
Right. Right. And I remember feeling lonely. I remember feeling sad. And this is when we started going back and forth to my father's house. And I even remember at a young age saying, "Do you still love my mom?" Like I recognized that word and that feeling. And he gave me some sort of answer, you know, like, "Oh yeah, you know, but people fall out of love," or something like that. But I felt that love had been taken away. You know, that everything that I knew to be true was like off in some way. I just want to make sure I adjust my screen so I can see everything coming in. But I just remember also, okay, so even going back to, so that was 4 or 5 years old, around the age of 6 or 7 years old, I remember experiencing sexual trauma as well, on and off by 2 individuals that were close to my family. And at the time that it was uncovered, and maybe even perhaps like the way it was uncovered by my mom, who was just immensely horrified by what happened. You know, which is understandable as a parent. Like, I can't imagine what it's like to uncover and realize that this is happening to your precious child, you know? So, but the way that I internalized that horror was I did something wrong. I felt like I had disappointed her. And I knew at that moment that everything that had been happening to me was wrong. And the other side of that is, I felt that, you know, truth coming out, or the exposure of truth, is an uncomfortable thing.
It is.
Being truthful, being authentic, I created some sort of belief around that being this uncomfortable thing that happens because of how it happened, right? So then I felt like I also had to cover up the feelings of shame that I felt at that moment. And I didn't know how to process all of that. You know, I just knew that I didn't want to be a disappointment. You know, I knew that I just wanted to be liked and accepted and nice. But I began to confuse everything. I was so confused because my boundaries were intruded on and they were blurred as well. So I just created these new rules for myself that didn't serve me,
Mm-hmm.
And that's where my problems began.
That is, to me, it's so sad because I don't know many women that haven't been hurt sexually. It happened to me by 3 different men before I was 9. And what I'm happy to hear is that your mom did do something about it. My parents, it's not that they didn't believe me, but they didn't do anything about it. It's a long story that I don't need to go into that, but I'm so glad that something was done. But I could see it's like, you're going through the divorce of your parents and then having something like this happen. I could understand fully why you would think, what is wrong with me? I remember feeling that too. There's got to be something wrong with me for someone to do this to me. Has to be. So I understand,
Exactly.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So would you say that you started shifting when your parents' divorce happened, or more the sexual trauma? When did you start shifting from the little girl that want to have the bike tours in her neighborhood?
Good question. I would say when I saw a negative experience, like just the negative experience of their that domestic violence altercation, and when the divorce happened is when it began. And then it deepened even more after I experienced the sexual trauma. And what happened to me, as we know, was wrong. But then the way I internalized it, I felt wrong and off. And I then felt that if I couldn't trust myself because I'm wrong, then I had to place trust on other people instead of myself. And it's mind-boggling to even say that out loud, but that that was my thought. And that was a new rule that I began to govern myself by. And Martinez, even at this point, I really began to notice the adults around me and like their irritation. Like if I was doing something wrong, being mischievous behavior, like, as a child, I was more sensitive to it, likely due to what I had seen, the contentious behavior between parents and people who love each other. Then this experience of trauma, of sexual trauma. So I really began to notice irritation even more, to the point that I would want to avoid that because it was so uncomfortable to disappoint people and disappoint the adult figures that were around me. So whether it was male or female, I just made sure to say yes at all times. I made sure to be very aware of how I was coming across. I didn't want to be the recipient of their irritation.
Yeah, you want to be a good girl, kind of stay kind of quiet on the side or whatever, and just kind of manage things for your little part here, and then, but not upset the overall group or whatever.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I even remember an instance, or a snapshot of what that looks like. We would go to my father's house back and forth, right? But in this moment, we were at home, and my brother wanted us to order, like he wanted pizza, like we all wanted pizza. We had a childhood friend that was over, and we were like, okay, who doesn't want pizza? What kid doesn't like that? So
yeah, exactly.
I think he was afraid of my father. And I mean, him being 2 years older than me, I would imagine that he saw instances of that contentiousness, that, disagreement. So he had in his own framework that, wait, maybe he's someone to be feared, So I felt that. But I was still put up to the challenge to make the call to my dad to call, to ask him if he could get his pizza. So I think my mom was at work or something. My grandmother was home. But so I gather up the courage to make the call, because my desire for that pizza was greater than not call.
Little kids,
Right. So it took courage for me to do it. And then, as I make the call, I received the most irritated response on the other side that was, he said yes, but it was just like, don't call it the last minute. Like just something that was just like, oh, like it just, I felt it. And I didn't like that. And it's pizza, you know, like pizza,
Yeah,
but it was like a
yeah,
moment where
simple,
I
but
needed my courage.
mm-hmm.
I needed my courage. I felt it left, and I felt that my feelings and my desires were invalidated, or that I couldn't ask for something
Right.
without someone's
Mm-hmm.
irritation.
Gosh, yeah, I really relate to that too. It's kind of you just gingerly walking around, even just a
Mhm.
conversation, you got to build up that courage to even ask. And then it's like
Mhm.
scary when you get on the phone and then to have that irritation with it. That's hard, but you did
Yeah,
it.
I
You did
did
it.
it.
You worked
I,
it through.
I
Yeah.
worked it through. I worked it
Hmm.
through. And I had to figure out how to find that courage again because it left me.
Right. Right. Gotcha.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
we are going to go to break, and then we will talk about a little bit more about your story, and
Mhm.
then you know, more transformation, right? That's what the
Yes,
show is all about, hope and
that's so true.
transformation.
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right. We'll be back, everyone. Thank you for tuning in. Welcome back, everyone, to Transformation with Martinet, where we overcome everything and compromise nothing. My guest today is Miriam Matthews, and we've been talking about her story, her childhood story, and what led her into her purpose. But we're going to go back to a point where, you know, a lot of times in life, things have to get a little bit worse before they get better. So, your parents were struggling, Miriam. How did your parents, and like mainly your mom, since you lived with her, how did her struggles
Mhm.
affect you?
Mm. Thank you for asking that. So my mother was a single mother, and
Mm-hmm.
she was working very hard. She was a nursing
Mm-hmm.
assistant, working in a
Oh, yes,
hospital.
that's hard.
Yes, yes. I mean,
Yes.
even her story is mind-boggling. I mean, she was a midwife in Ghana. She had all of these accolades, and once she came over
Mm-hmm.
to the U.S., everything didn't transfer over. But
Oh,
so it's like she
yes.
was working, in a position that was related to what she wanted to do, but not completely there.
Uh-huh.
Meanwhile, I remember hearing a lot about her own pain. She worked very hard, but wasn't fully accepted with where she worked.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people made fun of her accent, her
Oh.
differences. Yeah, she felt like
Mm-hmm.
she didn't belong.
Yeah.
But she endured because she had children to take care of, and
Mm-hmm.
she also had a family back home in Ghana, and it's not unusual to send money back home as well. So
Yeah.
she had a fight within her to keep going and endure. But
Mm-hmm.
one thing that I would hear about a lot is how we constantly needed help. And I mean, who doesn't? But it
Right.
seems that every issue that we had was related to money, a lot of money issues.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember this very disparaging moment where we're in the kitchen together. It's my grandmother. His name is Patience, and she is so patient. Like,
Oh, that's what I love that.
she really is. Um,
Yeah.
but uh, we were late on the rent. And I say we because I felt like I was a part of it. I mean, it's
Right.
probably maybe 12, 13. Well, it had to be about 13 or so at this point.
Yeah.
And times were hard. And I mean, there were times where the heat would be turned off, or we'd
Mm.
be warming up water to, take a bath that is comfortable. But that wasn't an issue, it was
Yeah.
the rent this time, right? And
Mm-hmm.
the landlord was so upset, which is understandable. It's like, okay, we expect you to pay the rent on time. Um,
Right.
but that didn't happen, right? So um, my mom has the landlord on speaker, and she is just going off and off and off on my mother to the point that she actually calls her stupid. And
Oh,
yeah, I mean, as a kid, right? Like that just really
yeah.
infuriated me. I felt so bad, that
Mhm.
someone who's working so hard and works really hard is being invalidated in this moment.
Right,
And how can
right,
someone that's
right.
working so hard be called stupid?
That's awful.
It's
Gosh.
awful, right? And that
Mhm.
was a moment where I really started to become resentful, actually. And it
Yeah.
was resentment towards people, and resentment towards my mother even, which is
Mhm.
also sad. But it was because of maybe even the passivity, like I wanted to speak and say something to the landlord, but I was hushed, like don't say anything. I felt that there was some humiliation. I felt that she was burdened, but there wasn't, I felt like I was a burden too, even though she didn't want me to feel that way.
Right, of course.
She just, she was working hard and she was just talking about it. She was just verbalizing it and talking about our needs. But many times I internalize that as I'm also a burden as well. And I started working at the age of 13 because I felt like it was needed. Actually at 12, I was doing some babysitting, but like some hard work at 13, I started working with a mentor at our church who had this building maintenance operation. So I would go and help with like cleaning these big buildings and these different companies. Like I'd carry these vacuum cleaners on my back and like mop and stuff like that. And Martine, I even remember being in this gynecology office in this clinic where in this one office, and it was like ran by women. So I'm like, oh, this is amazing. Like, know, it's amazing, right? So anytime I would enter into the office, I would just take my time in her office because she had all of these, she had like 20 pictures on her wall of pictures of her two little girls. And you could tell like it was pictures that started maybe when they were like 2 years old and maybe taken every 2 or 3 years. So like the end was them being grown-ups, like they were grown-ups. So babies to like grown-ups.
Oh, yeah.
And it was like, though it gave me some moments of happiness. So I'm like, oh my gosh, it's so amazing. I felt like that is such like an amazing success that I don't have. How can I experience that level of success? I felt like it was something that wasn't for me. And something, happiness is something that other people enjoy or receive.
Yeah. I bet that was fuel though, wasn't it?
It was fuel
in your belly to.
It was. I mean, it showed me something else, but I didn't realize it. I could use that fuel until later on. I made like between $90 and $100 or so on the weekends. And so even going backwards, during that phone call with the landlord, I finally, in order to just kind of like shut things up, I offered the $100 that I had just to get her off the phone. Right. And it did get her off the phone, but then I was normalizing, these different rules that didn't serve me. Right. Rules of not asking for things, rules of I can't talk about things that hurt me, just being silent, don't be yourself because it's not good enough. Or I normalized some sort of rule of just giving and giving and giving because I knew that I didn't want other people to experience what I had, like the disappointment or the irritation that I experienced. So I became a giver to the point of like overexertion as well.
Right. I'm familiar with that.
I began to overcorrect. So then I struggled with these negative beliefs about myself, and, feelings of being unworthy and that something was wrong with me. I questioned if, even at a young age, whether or not I could be a good mother, whether or not I could be successful. At a very young age, Martine, and I'm like, where did these thoughts come from? And just in my faith and background, we believe that there's also an enemy that drives, disconnection and disbelief and discouragement. And it's like, well, of course we want to, the younger, the better, to start that, because it can feel so cemented until you realize that there's actually hope to change things.
Yes. Like you're talking about being in that office and you see the pictures that, like, could I ever have that? It's like, I can relate to that. My story is different, but I can relate to that. But then there was also, I don't know if it was true for you, and it kind of sounds like it might've been, like, I always, even in the depths of the trauma I had, I tell people sometimes it was almost like being in a cave. It was really dark, but then there was like bits of light,
Mhm.
like a little bit of light. And I thought that to be God. That was saying, you know what, you're going to be okay. You're going to get through this and you're going to do something good. Took me a long time to believe that, but I always knew that I could use this stuff for something. I just didn't know what. Is it kind of like that for you too? Like
It is kind of like that, because even then, although I created many like beliefs that didn't serve me, I also activated some sort of action. Like I had a job, and I mean the job, it's not like it was like so it's not like it violated labor laws for children, like I was I still went to school, I did things, but then I was also able to buy myself things. It was like, I was developing some sense of autonomy and independence as well, that gave me hope to keep going. And I'm like, if I could do
really
this,
beautiful.
right? If I could
and
do
to
this
look at it like that. Yeah.
To look at it that way, to have that insight. And if I can do this at that age, I can do it. I can do it as I'm older as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That reminds me, I have a friend who ran a marathon not that long ago. And she didn't do it because she loves running. She did it because she thought she could always look back that, hey, I ran a marathon. I can do this too. And you being so young like that, I started pretty early myself, but not that early. And you did not only have that sense of autonomy, but it's kind of like, wow, I can do something. Even at 12 and 13, boy, I can do something here. That's really amazing.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. And I also have these planes that are, I live very close to an Air Force base. So if you're wondering, what is that noise? That's what that is.
Okay.
So yeah, so so even then there was like this major internal conflict within me. But the glimmer, those glimmers of hope, that light would also pull through as well. So even though I had, I experienced this confluence of the domestic violence that I saw, or the sexual trauma and negative beliefs, I could hang on to the fact that I could keep going. But before that happened, I did set a very low bar for myself, not realizing that I can have the success that I wanted, right? Because whatever I rehearsed for myself is what I would remember.
Right.
And also the pain that was not transformed was also transmitted. Different parts of my life.
Did your mom, being that she was very successful in Ghana and then she comes here, did that kind of play like a bit of like a role, because it didn't transfer? She had a pretty good position there. And then coming here, being a nursing assistant, did that make you strive harder? Did it make you feel a little bit scared, or did that play a part in that, in your role at all, or you're going up the ladder?
Well, I think she was maybe a little bit, because I mean, I was born here, so I didn't see all of her struggles back home, which the conditions were much worse, in terms of where she lived. I did visit Ghana one time in her family home, but I think she, came here to explore dreams and to create an even more, not sophisticated, but just to dive into what she created there, but make it even better here. And when she was hitting those blocks, there was some discouragement that came with that. There was pain that I saw that came with that, and you feel like, as a child, you feel for your parents. You don't want them to be upset or disappointed.
Right. Absolutely. So we are going to take a break again, and I would love to know what brought you to your why. What brought you to do what you want to do when we get back? If there was a single instant, quite a few instances, I'd love to know what that is.
Okay.
Thank you everyone for tuning in, and we'll be back in just a few. Welcome back, everyone, to Transformation with Martinet, where we overcome everything and compromise nothing. My guest today, Miriam Matthews, has been talking about her story and what she has overcome. And we were just ending the last segment about, we're going to go into your why. But before we do that, what relationship did you have with yourself, like regarding limiting beliefs, what you can do, what you can achieve?
So I had these limiting beliefs about not being good enough,
Mhm.
or not being able to really have the outcomes that I wanted. And,
Mhm.
what was at the essence of that was, I mean, people pleasing behavior too, because I felt like
Mhm.
I couldn't have peace without somebody else's approval,
Oh
and it
gosh, I
really
relate to
wasn't
that.
peace, right?
Mhm. Yeah, it's not
um,
peace at all. Peace at any
no.
price is no peace.
Exactly,
Mhm.
exactly. And then saying yes became even easier,
Mhm.
because I had a fear of rejection. I wanted to fit
Mhm.
in. I didn't like
Mhm.
confrontation. I didn't want to be the recipient, remember, of somebody else's anger.
Yes.
And I actually thought that I was responsible for other people's peace of mind. Like I would
Mhm.
literally like squeeze everything out of myself to fill up their cup, because I thought that if I could make them happy, then in some ways I have value because I've made them happy.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Boy, do I
Um,
relate to that one. Yes. You're the
so
peacemaker of the family.
the
You were the
peacemaker.
peacemaker. Yeah, so was
Mm-hmm,
I. Mhm.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So yeah, I definitely fell into and adopted that role like to the
Yep,
max.
yep, yep.
And so even as I was, continued to be called like, my childhood nickname and Mimi,
Mhm.
years after the
Yeah.
trauma, I actually began to recreate trauma, so like these
Mm.
self-sabotaging behaviors because of what I thought about myself. And, my beliefs also led me to compare myself almost like I did in that clinic.
Mhm.
It's just this distance between what I see, which is like a picture of people smiling,
Yes.
and people don't smile 24/7. It's not like they're living their lives just in a picture, which is funny because,
Yeah.
sometimes we do that with social media. We think that,
Oh, absolutely.
right? And we think that, oh, they have these wonderful, amazing, perfect lives, but it's really not like that,
Exactly.
but nor does the thoughts of myself have to be inherently wrong,
Mhm.
which leads me to feel sad all the time, so it's like
Mhm.
these different extremes. So I got into relationships that were not healthy for me.
Mhm.
They like anytime I'd look for Prince Charming,
Mm.
in the wrong place. Like if the sign said the wrong place to find love, Martinet, that's where I would go, because I'm like, it just makes sense to go
Ugh,
there.
I understand.
Yeah, but that's not what I wanted.
Yeah. Right.
Mm-hmm,
Right.
mm-hmm.
Yeah, so the outcome that you were going, you think you were on this path, but then that really wasn't quite it. How did you pivot into the next, or how did you
Mm-hmm.
pivot into what you really wanted?
So what I really wanted was to accept myself, and
Mm-hmm.
to accept myself without comparison, because it was the comparison that led me feeling depleted and deficient as well.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't want to, it was, I think, becoming tired of being tired of that. Like,
Yeah.
I wanted to stop weaponizing myself.
Mm-hmm.
As crazy as it is to say out loud, I wanted to stop creating self-destruction. And I
Mm-hmm.
read somewhere, Martinet, that a disempowered person is actually dangerous because of what their thoughts are.
Mm-hmm. Oh gosh. Yeah.
Right?
And
Right?
like what you're saying, yes. And like what you're saying is, I was just talking to a girlfriend actually this morning
Mm-hmm.
that a lot of times when the abuse is over, however
Mm-hmm.
we were abused, we often continue
Mm-hmm.
in what we call, as coaches, probably in your world as well as mine, my community, is a self-abuse room. We
Mm-hmm.
spend a lot of time in there continuing what our abuser did. And
Mm-hmm.
how terrible is that to do to ourselves, right?
Mm-hmm. 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 Even in preparing for speaking with you, as I was reflecting
Uh,
on all of this, I cannot tell you the
mhm,
amount of times that I cried. Not tears of just sadness,
mm,
but just the realization of how
yeah,
much I carried over the
yeah,
years.
yeah.
Yeah, I thought that, even if I had my own car, it was better for me to be in the passenger seat of it, because I associated people telling me what to do, people
Yeah.
driving for me, as being polite. And this was the nice,
Hmm.
like you said, good, this was
Yeah.
good, Mimi,
Hmm.
you know.
Yeah.
And it, not realizing that even though I was in the passenger seat, my I say my rocks of pain was still
Hmm.
influencing where the car went. And because I was
Right.
attracting who was in the car,
Hmm.
so if it hit a tree, Martinet, I could blame the person. Like, see, you hurt us, you hurt me. This is what I was expecting. You don't care, you
Gotcha.
know. You
Gotcha.
weren't looking out for me. You weren't looking out for us.
Hmm.
I could have those thoughts. But however, I also realized that that's not the outcome I wanted. When I blame somebody else, I'm giving my power away.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. It's kind of a popular movie, especially right now. And I think it's one of my all-time favorites, The Holiday
Mm-hmm.
with Jude Law. And all, it's just incredibly sexy for sure. Men and women, just a very sexy kind of thing. But there's a part in that movie where one of the lead characters, there's a man in there, a lot much older man, mentor for her, and he says something to her, and she's like, "My God, all the years I've had of therapy, and you finally nailed it on the head. I should be the leading lady of my life,
Mm-hmm.
not all these pleasing behaviors of everybody else. I should at least be the leading lady of my life."
Mm-hmm.
That just stuck with me so
Yeah.
much more than the fun little sexy parts of those movies. That is what has stuck with me. Like, yeah, I want to at least be the leading lady of my life,
Yes.
right?
Yes. Yes. That really resonates with me, because for so
Mm-hmm.
long I thought my DNA was tainted. I'm like, oh, because of what happened.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But not realizing that I get to recreate, which is what
Right.
my company is all about, is defining your
Yes.
DNA. And I'll talk about that a
Mm-hmm.
little bit later. But yes, the outcome that I wanted was to actually be empowered and to have power. So
Mm-hmm.
I also had to realize that there was a cost
Mm-hmm.
of not solving this problem,
Absolutely.
and not taking that accountability. And the cost was not finding who I am, my true self. It was
Mm-hmm.
the cost of
Mm-hmm.
not finding out the truth
Of who you are.
of who I am, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So then there was this dichotomy of me going on. And I thought that, well, Mimi was a poster child, and I liked the idea of her because she was always accepted, whether it was at church or
Mm-hmm.
somewhere else.
Mm-hmm.
Not realizing that the dichotomy was then creating this actress lifestyle
Mm-hmm.
of, I'm not getting paid for this. This is not like, being an actor isn't
Right.
something that is a craft that I'm getting paid for, or that I found purposeful. Not knocking it. I'm just
Mm-hmm.
saying that I did it because I thought that that was the way to survive.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Oh, I relate to that. But
Mm-hmm.
one of the things that you say, a quote for you, my wounds are someone else's wings. I
Yes.
love that.
Uh-huh.
We have to go on a break in a few minutes, but could you talk about that a little bit? I
Yes. Well,
love that. That's so powerful.
I heard that from Coach Sean.
Oh,
And
okay.
that
Okay.
is
I
something
should
that
know that
we
one then, but yeah, I guess it didn't hit me as much as it coming from you.
oh,
Yeah.
oh yeah, yeah, yeah. So uh, I think in realizing that I actually don't have to be afraid to share my story,
Mm-hmm.
which is why, like, I just really honor you and just your platform, because it's realizing that my voice, or just being here today, is a representation that I can still keep going. I'm still living. I'm not
Yeah.
perfect. I'm doing things imperfectly. I'm doing this
Mm-hmm.
imperfectly, but
Right.
my voice can help somebody else that needed to hear my story, and give
Absolutely.
them the wings to just keep going.
I love that. And I'm so honored to have you. I'm so honored to have you. And I was actually, I did a little bit of a post in a group of mine today, just saying that this is one of my favorite times of the week. I
Mhm.
love this. I love interviewing, hearing transformational stories of hope. And I don't do it perfectly. I get emotional. I don't say always the right things, but I hope that whatever is said today from you or me, that somebody gets what they need, because that's what it's about. It's not about us. It's what God has for us to put out there into the world.
Yes.
Yeah. So we're going to take a break again. And then I would just love to know more about who you talk to. And actually, even though all your information is going through the screen on commercials and everything, could you tell everybody just with your voice, where can everybody find you?
Oh, absolutely. So you can find me at bonus.defineyourdna.com is one way. The other way is following me on Instagram at defineyourdna.com.
I love that. That's so good. Yeah. So we'll be right back, everyone, with a little more of Miriam's story and what she does for all you wonderful people out there. Thank you. Welcome back, everyone, to Transformation with Martinet, where we overcome everything and compromise nothing. My guest today, Miriam Matthews, has been talking about her journey into hope, into purpose, and to turning her pain into purpose and healing. So Miriam, can you tell us today, like, who, I know you work with Christian women, who do you serve? Like, what is your message for someone who's looking for hope, looking for a new purpose, looking to transform the things that they've been through into their purpose and passion?
What comes to me and what I know, because it really speaks to me, is I help the individual or the woman that is tired of being in hiding and wants to truly discover who they are outside of what they have known to be true. And I say quotes, I do quotes on purpose because many times we need to shed those layers of false self to really understand true self. And so yes, Christian women, but with even the description of maybe even a disconnection in their faith, feeling lost, being a part of a support. I like to provide that support and that encouragement and be that, the train wreck that actually learned lessons and got back on course so that individuals can receive the support they need and the mentorship they need, because that is something that I needed. When I, when I was talking about this idea of me, first it was me, it was a person, I was free.
Right.
Then it became an idea that I would hide behind because I felt like I'm not her. It was actually after the failed romantic relationships that then led to this pregnancy that I had outside of marriage. And I felt so much shame, Martinet, because that's something that I had learned was a grave sin. And, so I actually thought that people's judgment of me was actually going to kill me, which is, it's amazing. It's just crazy to say that, right? But fear, when we go into
it, but I get you.
Protect ourselves.
Yeah.
So I thought it was going to kill me, but it didn't. It didn't kill me.
Right.
And the very person that I expressed or projected some resentment towards, my mother, God used her to be a light in my life. And for some people, it may not be their mother. It could be my voice today. It could be your voice, Martinet, every time you speak. It could be someone else where you experience some love that gives you the courage to just keep on going.
Right.
And it wasn't really judgment. I thought judgment was going to kill me, and I thought that that they would be disappointed in me, but I think projected that onto them. I think maybe they were just more so shocked because of the perfect way that I was presenting myself, which didn't allow for me to just be me and just to live.
You're talking about the support. I think everybody needs that. And, Les Brown always used to say, he probably still does in his speeches and everything, that sometimes we need somebody else to believe in us before we can believe in ourselves. I sure know that's definitely was for me. And I, especially being a coach as you are, that I really don't believe we can do it alone. Not entirely. Doesn't mean you can't make some changes on your own, but to have someone else there just to walk with you, just to hold your hand for the steps that you need to take, to encourage you, to offer support, because the answers are inside of each individual person. But we can help draw that out. We can help you shine your light.
So in realizing that I do have value on the inside, and realizing that I need new information in order to make changes, I began to make those changes. And that was also realizing, Martine, that perfectionism doesn't allow for compassion. And I wasn't being compassionate towards myself, or even the 6-year-old me that experienced trauma, which is horrific to say that, but that's, many times that's what we're doing. So, it was full circle how God brought that back. And my mother, I was able to release resentment, because my mom didn't place judgment on me. She was so compassionate when she found out that I was pregnant. She was so loving and compassionate. And I was able to see her as a person who was just doing her best. And her capacity, as well as honor mine, as I began to release judgment. Yeah.
Absolutely. It's so good you had a mother that was supportive, that was loving, that was kind, so that you could be yourself in that moment and make decisions from there.
Exactly. Then, my why became really strong. The reason why I work with women, the reason why I'm so passionate is because I needed courage to change. Change requires change.
Yeah. And we don't always like that, but yes.
Oh, it's so uncomfortable.
It is.
Even Lisa Nichols, I always love just the way she describes things. And we can be more committed, she says, to a familiar discomfort than we are to an unfamiliar new possibility. Right. And it's like, for me, like that, that looks like being in a corner of this mental house that I had. That corner represented pain. That corner represented, and it radiated, and everything was rotten in the house. But I had to realize that in order for me to create something new, I had to do something different.
Yes, absolutely.
That's where the investment started coming in. And the way I look at that too, Martine, is my thermometer, it's wintertime, right? Say it's wintertime, and I'm keep on setting my thermometer to 40 degrees, thinking that, I'm going to stay warm by just self-protecting and putting jackets on and blankets, because I didn't want to pay for the heat that was going to give me the motivation that I needed. I needed to actually start paying for things and not seeing it as a cost, but as an investment.
Investment, exactly. Yes. Love it.
Yeah. And that I could, I began to experience a return on investment after I invested in spiritual growth programs and business coaching and a book camp. I wrote a book called My Body Isn't Mine: How to Heal from Sexual Trauma and Find Peace. Those investments allowed me to be a business owner, of 2 businesses today.
Yes. That is absolutely amazing. That, because it is true. We got to sit in the discomfort, take steps. We have to invest in ourselves.
Yeah.
So we just have about a minute left. What do you want to impart on our guests today?
Take action. Action. Realize that change requires change. And that you can create the life that you want to have, because I always like to say faith without works is dead. That's scripture. That I can't just wait, that I need to activate something so I can get to a new point that I want to be. I'm having a workshop next week that I love to invite individuals to who would like to invest in themselves, to gather new information that disrupts everything that you may know to be true that's actually false, but to then begin activating new change.
That sounds amazing.
Yes. If you're interested, bonus.defineyourdna.com. bonus.defineyourdna.com, because your past is your push or your purpose.
Absolutely it is. And I remember you said your little girl goes around the house saying that all the time. I love that. Woo!
She does. It's amazing. It's so cute to hear. But they know that I'm all about purpose.
That's so good. I can only imagine how beautiful they're going to turn out and how purposeful they're going to turn out because of you. They're beautiful, their mama. That's amazing.
Now you're going to bring some tears to my eyes.
You are. You're awesome. Absolutely awesome.
Thank you.
So,
thank you so much.
I want to, absolutely. And I want to thank you so much for coming on today, sharing your amazing wisdom, your story. And I know you've touched hearts today. There's no doubt about it. So thank you. And thank you everyone so much for tuning in today. I greatly appreciate it. And if any of you out there have a transformational story that you want to share, please send me a direct message on Instagram, Facebook, an email to Martinez at martineemmons.com. And we'll have a chat. And again, thank you so much for tuning in, and we'll see you next Friday. Bye.
Thank you for listening to Transformation with Martinez. Did listening today spark a sense of hope and possibility? Hold on to this feeling and tune in every second and fourth Friday at 10 a.m. Pacific for more inspiring conversations with Martinez and her guests. They will show you there is hope, and you are right where you need to be. Martinez is dedicated to supporting you right where you are while launching you towards promise, passion, and possibility that leads to the fulfilled life your heart aches for. If you're tired of being stuck, schedule a complimentary consultation with Martinez and get on the exciting path towards the life you want to be living. Visit martineemmons.com and make your appointment today.